All right, Mr. Mayor, we are live and ready.
Okay, sounds good. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Seldovia City Council, Monday, February 23rd, 2026. Time is 4:34 p.m. This will be a work session. We've got a couple items on the discussion topics tonight. First one will be a legislative update from Representative Sarah Vance with the Alaska Legislature. And then the second one will be discussion of a fiscal policy or cash flow management plan. And I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Liz.
And I'm not seeing Representative Vance on right now. You want to reach out to her for a moment, or I don't know if we want to switch that order around.
Yeah, it's up to you. You want to take a minute and try to see if she's getting ready to call in, or?
Yeah, let me text her.
Okay.
The wind is just kicked up here. Crazy.
It's crazy.
I don't know if it's hitting anybody else, but I'm sitting in my upstairs and all of a sudden, like, the house was just shaking. I was like, whoa, what's happening?
Yeah, I see that forecast is not very nice.
No.
My forecast hasn't been so bad, but then when I logged onto the work computer, it was showing completely different numbers. I'm like, is Google feeding me the numbers I want to see?
Google is now right there.
Yes, I'm hoping to travel home on Wednesday night or Wednesday afternoon, so fingers crossed.
Oh, you're still gone right now, huh?
I'm in Anchorage, yeah.
Gotcha.
Is gotcha a real word or just slang?
It's slang.
Just slang, isn't it? That's like squozing. I mean, if something's been squeezed, then it's got to be past tense. It's got to be squozing. Fresh squozing orange juice.
I've never heard of the word squozing before.
Well, it's no worse than gotcha.
No.
I mean, it makes complete sense, for past tense. Squeeze and squozing.
Yeah. I see we're supposed to go from 35 to 0 here in less than 48 hours.
Yeah.
Looks like it's going to get real chilly in the whole South Central here.
It's like saying
I swear, my go ahead, Jack. My bad.
Yeah. Sorry, Mayor Campbell, I haven't gotten a response back, so I leave it up to you if you want to go on to.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Yeah, let's do that. Let's go ahead and start with B2, the fiscal policies on the cash flow management plan. And then if we need we can get started. If we have to break, we can when she calls in. That works for you guys. Heidi,
Sure
you
thing,
need that one, or is Liz?
I will lead it, but Liz is going to screen share because I couldn't figure out how to do both on my tiny screen.
Gotcha.
With my notes. So, Liz, if you don't mind sharing, and hopefully you guys can all see that. I realized that we have a few council members, and so we may need some additional.
It's just going to be on the screen.
But you can follow along in your packet. We'll have the actual information. This is just the presentation I made so that hopefully as you're going through your packet, you have more details, because I realize that there's a few council members who are new, and so there isn't as much information. So you should have a work session packet. And in that work session packet, we'll have the cash flow management plan policy draft, and then a memo, and then some background information. So if you're following along if you're looking at the policy itself, this presentation will kind of just give you some of that background information that you need for the policy. So starting with some high level information, Liz, yep, thank you, here on the right slide there. The general fund, so we have several funds that make up the city finances. The general fund is the primary operating fund of the city of Seldovia, and it contains the finances for the daily and long-term operations of the city as a whole in terms of the administration, council, public works, library, Seldovia space, fire and EMS, and Seldovia Police Department, which is now like the living stipend for the VPSOs. Those are all funded through primarily tax revenue, so real, personal, and property tax. However, other revenues include the intergovernmental revenues, such as the Community Assistance Program, and fees for services such as like the refuse fees, facility rents, administrative fees like copies and such, conditional use permits, those kind of things. Any fees for those go into the general fund. And they're not dispersed by the department. They go into an overall general fund. I'll just switch pages real quick to show you that slide. If you could switch to the next one, Liz, and then we'll go back. There's an overall general fund bucket, and then the departments underneath all have revenues associated with expenditures associated with them, but not revenues. The revenue goes into the overall general fund, and the expenditures are out throughout the departments. Okay, if you can go back to that first slide. The other funds, so there's the general fund, special revenue funds, and there are 7. There's actually technically 8, but we are only recognizing 6 in our budget right now, and then the mid-year budget adjustment, I'm asking for recognition of the 7th. Oh, it looks like Representative Sarah Vance has just joined, so I can pause and we can unshare, and we didn't get very far, so that works.
There we
My-
go.
My apologies. I was running down from the 5th floor of budget subcommittee. So
No.
it is a very busy day today.
Yes, thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to speak with us again. Much appreciated.
Okay, it sounds like I jumped in the middle of something. How would you like this to go?
No, we're good. We had just started. We weren't sure if you were caught up in the meeting, so we had just started our next agenda item, but we're totally good. All eyes are on you.
Okay, I will give a flash forward. A lot has been happening in the legislature, and today on the House floor, we voted on the supplemental budget. And this was a $500 million supplemental budget, a bit controversial in the fact that it's the largest we've ever seen in history. It had a lot more than just some DOT fast track request. Fire suppression is often what is requested in the supplemental. This was a lot of extra things that the department said, hey, we have these bills that you need to pay. So I voted no at this point in the stage. We sent it over to the Senate because they're asking us to draw from our state savings account, our constitutional budget reserve, in order to fund this $500 million ask right now. So it's over in the Senate, and or it's going to be, and hopefully they will kind of trim it down to size for what I think is appropriate for a fast track supplemental to be able to get some of these things in motion for the FY26. So that happened today. Also, you may have read in the news that a legislative staffer was arrested by the FBI on child sexual abuse charges and trafficking. This is an issue that, as you know, I've been passionate about, and I've been running numerous bills and trying to strengthen our laws in Alaska. And so I've had a bill in House rules for more than 2 weeks, waiting for it to be brought to the floor. And this bill is House Bill 47 regarding AI generated child sexual abuse material. It criminalizes that activity. And I made a motion to draw it out of rules to the floor for a vote. Our rules chairwoman opposed taking action on it today. I am disappointed in that action because I think the legislature needs to not only say that we take this issue seriously, but take action as lawmakers to strengthen our laws around every area of sexual abuse and the production of that material. So this is an issue that I'm going to continue to work on. I'm hoping that they bring it to the House floor for a vote. I know the Senate is working on a crime bill that may have some of these measures in them. But that's happened. You also saw numerous bills introduced today. We had a personal bill deadline that this is the last day that any personal bills can be introduced for the legislative session. So I focused on issues that are important to our community. And one of them that would impact people in Seldovia directly, and I did have some specific people in mind in Seldovia, is HB 356, Alaska Coastal Microfisheries Act. Last year, I sat on the Legislative Seafood Task Force, and I heard from a lot of the small boat fishermen that said how difficult it was to be able to sell their product, to someone, cut it. Because of DEC regulation, they can't just simply cut a fish into 2 fillets and sell it at the dock to someone. It's challenging when a tender isn't showing up at the fishing grounds for some of our set netters because it's not penciling out. It's getting tougher and tougher in the market. So what this bill does is it streamlines the regulations under DEC that says if you have less than 10,000 pounds annually in a vessel under 50 feet, that you should be exempt from some of those stricter regulations. And there's a few other details in that, but it is a working document, and I encourage our fishermen to take a look at it and have a conversation with me and the Fisheries Committee on how to make this bill work, because I want to make sure that we keep our small boat fishermen going in our coastal communities and not fall through the cracks while we see so many changes in the market and the price of fish. I also have introduced 2 agriculture bills. We have a lot of farmers in our area. One deals with agriculture co-ops, and the other deals with lease and land sales. There's been a lot of consternation about how they get clogged up in DNR and in that renewal process and being able to purchase or lease land. And I have a couple of bills to directly address that. I have one, House Bill 354, that is a crypto ATM bill that helps protect our seniors. There's a new scam going around that is specifically targeting our senior population. We have a lot of seniors in our district, and it was AARP that brought my attention to this, and also Senator Kathy Tilton's mom happened to be subject to this crime, and she lost $8,000. And for a senior and a fixed income, it's pretty harsh. So what this bill does is it requires the crypto ATMs to be under the same regulations as a regular ATM that goes through a bank. It also provides some protections for seniors so that they can be reimbursed, and it give extra warning for seniors who may fall vulnerable to these types of scams. So please know this is happening. You can look on the news about what happened with Senator Tilton's mom. She did a floor speech with permission from her mom talking about it. But with the AI generated audio now, what this person did is used Senator Tilton's voice to make a phone call saying that she had been in a car accident and was arrested and needed bail money. And the mom says, "Oh, but she doesn't drink." And the voice that sounded like her daughter said, "Oh, but it was cough syrup. And I need this bail money." And they told her how to go find one of these crypto ATMs and do several transactions to be able to get this money. And it's frightening how realistic it is, and how they're taking this money that turns it into cryptocurrency that isn't as trackable. So that bill is in both bodies, and hopefully we'll get some attention, and if anything, create awareness to help our seniors not fall for these crimes. I also introduced House Bill 357, which is the Alaska Heartbeat Act. This bill provides informed consent for mothers, science-based heartbeat detection, and civil liability on providers. There is no state criminal penalty for this, but it does provide a civil cause of action for providers who provide an abortion after a heartbeat is detected. Right now, we're finding that many women are not truly informed about the procedure that's happening and what the consequences could be to them after that. And I care about women and protecting babies in the womb, but wanted to do something that Alaskans felt was a reasonable measure to be able to protect our children. So I am still working on the conversation about House Bill 29, which is our school employee healthcare pooling. We have received support from Anchorage School District on that, the Matsu, our school district, and I think Fairbanks is now talking about supporting this, but I still have received no hearing from the majority on this bill. So I'm disappointed about that. But I think the more that the school districts and the municipalities talk about the need for the option to pool with our state healthcare, will help get it off the ground, because more and more people are talking about it favorably, that we need this option. It also makes it available for municipalities to be able to pool with the state healthcare. And with the ever-changing healthcare market, I know that it's getting harder to be able to find a good plan that's affordable for our employees. So this is a permissible statute that says, hey, it's an option, and it doesn't force anyone to do anything, but I want to open up the option for people to pool under our state healthcare plan so that we can all support our great employees and be able to reduce the cost of government, whether it's in our school districts or in our municipalities. I think this would be helpful on many, many fronts, and especially with our school district right now facing tough decisions and a deficit. So I've gone really fast. I do have a couple of other bills, and I forgot I was going to send this one pager that has a little snapshot of all my bills, but I couldn't create it ahead of time because the clerks give the bill number for right before we had them read across on the floor. So I do apologize for that. I didn't want to send you something vague without the proper notification on it, but that's kind of a snapshot of where we are. We are still working on subcommittees for the operating budget for FY27. March 13th is when we will get the spring forecast for oil revenue that will tell us if we have much hope on having more of a cushion in the budget. There's been a lot of consternation that the House Finance zeroed out the PFD, and they said that that was a starting point to build the budget after that. That's unusual. The House typically has not worked in that manner before. So I've been talking with people in the Senate that there will be a PFD because we know that definitely helps people. It helps alleviate poverty and helps people pay the bills. I support the PFD on principle, not for the dollar amount. And so that's something that I've spoken up on. And in fact, one of my bills that I introduced requires legislative oversight for the trustees for the Permanent Fund Corporation, because right now we pay them $1 billion a year to invest our money, but they are not confirmed by the legislature and they are not even required to be state residents. So many things going on right now. And since I gave a rapid shot of a lot of different things, I will stop and answer any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that. Anyone on council have any questions for our representative in Juneau?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Jack.
Sarah, when you say you voted against the supplemental budget and you'd like to trim it down, what and how far down are you thinking?
Thanks, Jack. What I would like to trim it down to is the things that should be fast-tracked and funded right now. And that would be the DOT's meet the match. And I think that's about $70 million to keep so that the DOT can continue to offer those out to bid. And they have assured us that they can do that. They have money in place for this fiscal year, but the contractors are really nervous about putting those bids out without the money in the hands of DOT. The other is the fire suppression money that has been requested. We often see that in early summer, and that's normal procedure for a supplemental fast track. A lot of the other requests could be rolled into the operating budget or at least a conversation for next month. So that's part of the argument that we're having, is that the majority is requesting $500 million that we draw from the CBR for these items that we're saying not everything is an emergency, and we need to take a deeper look at them. But some of them warrant funding right now, and we offered amendments that said, hey, we'll do this. We will give our CBR vote if you can prioritize a couple of these items that are truly a fast track, like a hot now. And that failed. So we'll see what the Senate does, because once the Senate, if they choose to pass simply a supplemental, they send it back to the House for concurrence. And depending on how that is, then that would be the final vote from the House. Right now, we're in the middle of that procedure. The other area of consternation is that for the past number of years, the Senate has not passed a true supplemental budget. They've rolled it in with the operating budget, and we lightly call it a turducken. It's like the turkey dinner that has everything in it, because they've done that for quite a few years. So I haven't heard what the temperature is in the Senate, if they're going to pass just a supplemental this month or not. So I wait in anticipation to see, but my vote, it will be determined on if they make it a reasonable approach, because drawing from our CBR, our savings account, early is something that I'm very cautious of.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any additional questions, comments? Oh, go ahead, Heidi.
Just a couple quick questions, if you don't mind, Representative Vance. What are you hearing regarding the operating budget? I've seen some things just, on social media and such regarding maybe a restructuring of the oil tax structure and those S Corp payments that was in last year and was vetoed by Governor Dunleavy. It seems like there's a lot of working pieces. Are there any things that are pulling ahead? Are there any things that seem like both bodies are working towards that may come to fruition? Can you give us a little snapshot of what's going on there? Or is it too early?
think it's still a little early. Senate Resources did move on a big change with oil tax reform. I have not seen that same coordination in the House. It whatever does happen would not change this budget. So there is that. And there's been some income tax, like there was an income tax bill introduced today by a member. There is an education head tax that is also an income tax that's in one of the committees that I'm in that's being considered. There's been a lot of different renditions. The Senate is the body to watch.
Okay.
Because they still are what I would consider the old guard that says we've made this decision and we'd like you to go along with it. I don't say that to be disrespectful. It's just that that's how the Senate works. A lot of them have been there for a very long time and they're digging deep into the issues. Right now, there's a committee right now on the LNG asking questions about our state investment in that. So there's not only do we have the whole tax structure and like the governor's fiscal plan that was not popular, we also have the LNG project and what our role in that's going to be in tandem. So I wish I could tell you. That's a conversation that we're all having in the hallways is, you know, hey, what's actually going to rise to the top? Because we have quite a few very large decisions to make. But as far as the budget itself, for this year, I'm seeing that it's probably going to be very similar to the prior year's budget. There aren't major changes that I'm aware of, except what is our revenue going to be come March? How much for most people, all of the departments are kind of flat funded. And they've had increases in cost, just like you have in the city, that you haven't increased what you've done, but the cost has increased, right? So you'll see that, but people are saying, well, the only other place to pay for it is out of the dividend. I have been told that there will be a dividend. It's just, where is it going to come from and how much is it going to be? So all of those things, I wish I had I wish I could see into what it is. Sometimes you can, but right now, since there's so many big decisions, I think people are really just trying to get a hold of really what it is that we can do, especially with the LNG. City of Homer was here this week, and I met with them about the port expansion and its relationship to the LNG project and really how it impacts our entire region and working to support that. And so when it comes to just so you know, Seldovia is key, is so much a part of that relationship in my mind and supporting all of those things. So I'm hoping that when we are looking at the impacts of the LNG, that it also includes the conversation about our ports and in our coastal communities, because I think that part's being forgotten. But right now, people are looking at how we're going to pay the bills for the next 5 years. So it's not necessarily a good conversation for today. I know that was a very long answer, but pray for us. These are some of the most dynamic, pressing. It feels more pressing this year than I've seen in the past. I think because we have these large projects and investment happening, and we don't have the oil revenues yet.
Hey, Sarah,
Thank you.
go ahead. Did you have more, Heidi?
Nope, just saying thank you.
Sarah, I had a quick question on an update. Is there much more scuttlebutt or any kind of support at all or for the governor's proposal on the state sales tax? Is that going to be
No.
DOA?
So the governor's whole plan was not, I don't know that there was any member who liked the governor's plan. It was a very interesting combination. And he even had ICER come and talk to us about some of the work that they had done. And we had a lot of deep questions for ICER, how they came to certain conclusions. And so I don't think you're going to see the governor's package move forward at all, but you will see some attempts at varieties of income producing measures. So the sales tax has polled better for the past number of years than an income tax. And really for quite some time, Alaskans are like, well, sales tax, I could live with as compared to an income tax. But right now, overall, what my experience is that Alaskans are saying, we can't handle any more taxes. We can't handle our property assessments and property taxes going up because we're just trying to make it work. We're trying to pencil out. So I've been opposed to us imposing taxes. It would be great to get our economy going, and then you take some cream from the top, right? But when people are really struggling to make ends meet, that, and feeling it at the grocery store and the utilities, I just really have a hard time with something. The only way that I would vote for something is through a comprehensive fiscal plan that is truly balanced, that everyone can agree with. We had a legislative fiscal plan that was introduced a number of years ago that had some parts in it that I didn't like, but everyone agreed to squeal a little. And since everyone was evenly gored, then it said, okay, then we can agree to it. The governor's plan was not necessarily that. So I know that I haven't looked at the detail of what Senate Resources just passed out, but it did receive some news, because usually when the Senate takes action on something, that it's going to have traction. So we'll see. I don't know that they've brought it to the Senate floor yet, but I have a feeling that will be in the House for consideration. There is agreement that we need to do something, but I can tell you that my caucus doesn't support any taxes for the reasons that I just said. I'm trying to make some reasonable measures to help cut the cost of doing business, right? With House Bill 29. And also I have the Fair Tax Act that says that it caps the property assessment at 5%, and that if there is going to be an increase, that they have to base it on increases in real property. Says, hey, municipalities still have the authority to do it, but justify it, because there's a lot of people. Anchorage saw a 40% increase in 1 year, and people are losing trust. And we at least want an accounting that people can have confidence in, that it's based on actual improvements. It'll be interesting on what shakes out this year. It's an election year, and people have a lot of consternation about making bold moves in an election year. So we may end up with nothing. We may end up with something great.
Yeah, anyone's guess, I guess, at this point. So,
Yes.
although time is flying fast here. So,
this session does feel like it's on fast forward a lot more than other sessions, and I think part of it is because this is the end of an administration.
Yeah.
And the dynamic is different. It's not the typical Dunleavy administration in actions that we've seen, which is also very interesting, because we don't know who our next governor is going to be. There's been no shining star when it comes to what people think is going to happen. And I think a lot of a lot of the measures that we're seeing is also a result of that consternation.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for your perspective on all of that. Any
I-
wrap-up questions? Go ahead, Jack.
I have one more question, Sarah. Between the operating budget and the supplemental budget, if you was to trim that, what would be the effect for Seldovia or indirect effect? Our marine highway system, which is a lifeline for all our coastal communities, if reading what you read, they're struggling for revenues to keep things going. How's that going to end up?
As far as I know, if DOT had some of the funding for that would be the meet the match for the ferries, then it would be in there. So I anticipate that it's going to make it through. Because we had all of what DOT's request in there as the meet the match as our request. And knowing that Senator Burt Stedman, who's from Sitka, he's Mr. Finance Budget, he will not let the ferries go without being properly funded. So you do have a coastal representation on the Senate Finance Committee who really makes the final decisions on what they believe the budget's going to be. So I don't have any concern that will be left wanting. Actually, I feel I highly commend DOT for the work that they've done on the ferry system. I know that they go from putting out one fire to the next. They are having a hard time just getting people to run it. We haven't had a cross Gulf like we need to, simply because people as soon as they would hire someone and get them trained and ready to go, then they had some people quit because they were just worn out. So there's a lot of issues in the ferry system, but we have been funding them. I know that all of you have been well aware that the Testamina RFP went out again. I'm hopeful for that because we need that. The trustee has been doing his job, but I don't think that it's going to be a casualty in this.
Good, thank you.
All right. Any last questions before we let Sarah get on with her day? All right. Representative Vance, thank you. Appreciate it again. Yeah, always good to catch up, and yeah, things are changing fast. So any updates you're available to give us, we appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me on, and I apologize I was late. I'll have to run down from the 5th floor a little bit quicker, but Liz was on
business first.
Liz texted me. She's like, "Are you coming?" So she's doing a great job.
Yeah, sorry
Perfect.
about that.
No, I appreciate it. It's necessary.
All right. Well, you have a good evening, and thanks again.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, we'll talk to you later. Thanks. All right. Obviously, a lot of things happening down in Juneau this year, like every year, but never a dull moment for sure. Heidi, we'll go ahead and keep rolling here. We got about 45 minutes left in our work session.
Okay, we'll see if we get through this. I'm trying to kind of do a little bit of a deep dive into finances just to give some background while also talking about the cash flow management plan. So I'll try to make it as quick and simplified as possible. You're looking at the city funds page here. We talked about the general fund, which is where our tax revenue goes in to fund city services such as public safety, council, administration, and public works. Public works is like the biggest piece of that pie there, and that's facilities, roads, just basic operations really for the city. And then other revenues that go in besides tax revenue is some of those intergovernmental revenues like the community assistance program, which we keep saying we need to stop incorporating it into our actual budget and counting on that, as well as fees for services. The special revenue funds, which have 6 in the FY26 budget, a 7th is being introduced, or is a part of the public hearing tonight for the budget amendment, include water, sewer, harbor, dock, boat haul out, senior meals, and that 7th one is an SVFD. We do have fire and EMS in the fire and EMS in the general fund, but the SVFD has their own department funds that they generate, as well as their expenses. And really that's the difference between the special revenue funds and the general fund. Is the special revenue funds have specific revenue sources that are restricted or committed to their expenditures for specified purposes. So they should be able to bring in enough money to be able to operate their expenses, and those revenues and expenses stay within that fund. They don't cross any other funds or departments. And those revenues are primarily user fees. Though for the the Seldovia Volunteer Fire Department, that's not necessarily user fees, it's donations. There's actually technically an 8th fund, and that's the federal and state grant revenue fund that is tracked in our audit based on our different grants that we are running through, but we're not touching on that in this budget discussion, and probably not even in the FY27 budget. That'll be something for the future. We do those budgets separately anyways, so not incorporating it at this time because this is already a heavy lift. Second to last fund to discuss is the Seldovia Permanent Fund, which most of you are aware of as funds that the city received. It was established in 1996, and through Resolution 2236, Charles Schwab is designated as the custodian of the Seldovia Permanent Fund. 500,000 in funds were transferred to that account, with a remaining portion of about 40,000 in a smaller short-term investment account. In the case that the city council needs to use it to liquidate it quickly, because the funds in Charles Schwab were committed by that previous council at a 10-year period. You will hear an update on those here in a couple of months from our investment provider or our investment manager. And then lastly is the Seldovia Major Maintenance and Repair Fund. This is in code per chapter 3.03, and it's supposed to account for the revenues and expenditures of major capital projects, repairs and replacement needs. It includes separate funds for general funds, capital projects funds, water, wastewater, dock, small boat harbor, and boat haul out. And this proposal does propose restructuring our capital improvement fund reserve fund overview page, and just ensuring that those accounts that were assigned by council that are capital improvement related fall under capital projects under the MMRFs, just to make sure it's clean and we keep everything together. The 2% Public Works Fund, Police Public Safety Reserve Fund would still remain separately, and I'm proposing that the Vehicle Replacement Fund be incorporated under the Public Works Fund. And I know that was a lot, so we'll have some follow-up slides to kind of walk us through that. And if you have any questions, please stop me. But just to give some visuals here, this is the general fund. And you can see that, as we discussed, it's an overall pot of money with the different departments, and it makes up about 54% of the city's operating funds. So it's a big piece of the pie. I'm not going to talk about the special revenue funds any further in this presentation. We'll talk about them separately in future presentations, but just keep in mind that overall, between the general fund and these special revenue funds, our operating budget for the city is approximately $1.7 million. Seldovia Permanent Fund. Sorry, Liz, you were supposed to go. I didn't say next page, so can you go 2 slides ahead? And you can see, as she went through real quickly, that pie chart, and I'll make sure it gets back to you. So Seldovia Permanent Fund. I mentioned briefly, it's 10-year investment. This is just to show you what it's been doing the last 4 years. I am recommending at this time that we do continue to keep that portion of funds. Like I said, the smaller AMLIP operating cash fund or not operating cash, sorry, the smaller AMLIP account that is the Seldovia Permanent Fund separate, only because we have some really large projects right now where we have significant payments. We just did almost $90,000 payment for a raw water. Aqua stormwaters have some large payments going through. They're all reimbursable, but we need to have that cash up front in order to make those payments. When Jackloff starts going in earnest, those are going to be, again, some large payments. And then we're looking at the fuel and lube roof here this spring as well, spring into fall. So definitely wanting to keep some liquidity in case it's needed while we consider this plan. Next slide, Liz. And again, here's an overview, and this is in your packet, of the Major Maintenance and Repair Fund, and just showing that the ones in dark blue would be shifted under the MMRF. And that includes fuel retail, Parks and Rec and Trails Fund, and the Harbor Boardwalk and Seafarers Memorial Fund. Currently, the Major Maintenance and Repair Fund is one AMLIP account, with the general fund, water, sewer, boat haul out, and such underneath as sub accounts. And so because of that, because we don't actually have them split up into their own pieces of the pie in AMLIP, we have this unassigned fund that has started that contains the interest for the MMRF. We could split these into separate accounts if council desires. However, it has been beneficial at this point to have that unassigned fund, as council has appropriated funds for the rest of the insulation project from there, as well as matching funds for the fuel and lube roof. So that has been helpful. But if you want to see those in separate pots and the interest going to each pot, please let me know. And go to the next slide.
Heidi, real quick, I think
Yes.
correct me if I'm wrong, the reason we chose to keep that all together is because of the compounding interest, and not separating those up into a a bunch of sub accounts that are all generating much smaller amounts of interest.
Right. And so that compounded interest is all going in as an unassigned because we're not tracking these separate water, sewer, and everything in the account itself. We're tracking it in the budget. And what that will allow, if that structure stays, is you guys can take those unassigned funds and move them anywhere you want. So they can go into water, they can go into sewer, they can go into general fund, which is kind of what they're being used for right now. But there is a method to get money into those other accounts, and we're going to get there. Does that work?
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to the cash flow management plan itself. And this is what is the meat of the plan you're looking at. And it shows that there would be an operating cash section of the cash flow plan. And it says the target is from 350 to 500,000. And that's our primary checking account. And part of why this plan is so pertinent is because we keep going over that 500,000 mark. Recent checks we've written have put us back down below it, but we know once we get those reimbursements, we're going to go back over it. And our insurance limit for the FDIC is 500,000. So instead of keeping those monies in there, it's pertinent to be able to move them into a separate account where they're better insured, and potentially that they have some interest, they're interest bearing. So the idea is that whenever we reach that $500,000 mark at the end of the month, a finance officer will move those funds into AMLIP operating cash. And this policy will allow that without having to have that that discussion with council every time. So the hope would be that you would feel comfortable that we can make that discernment that, okay, 500,000, now we're putting it into another account. Those funds are still operating cash. They're still part of that overall operating pot. And they can be accessed within minutes in a day, as long as it's in the day. And it looks like we have a question from Councilmember Payton.
Yep. So thank you, Heidi, for this comprehensive report you're doing. Just a quick thought. Frequently when someone asks about, hold on, sorry. Okay, sorry. I was wondering if instead of you guys having to bring it to us every time you do that, instead it's just included in the mayoral or the finance report. I'm assuming that's how it'll happen. But I'm just clarifying that that's your plan for that type of transaction. I personally have absolute and blind confidence in you ladies, but it is easier to be able to point at, yep, we know that this was moved. There it is right there in those minutes.
Yep. Thank you for that feedback. Excellent feedback. That is how we are doing the Public Works 2% right now. And you'll see in tonight's city manager's report that I do mention it. I'm not sure if Jan mentioned it in the finance report or not. I'll have to look because she did it, I think, right after. But that 2%, I do report it back to the council that we have moved, 44,000 as of this time. It is in that fund, and you'll see it in the audit and on the budget, and it's tracked. Is that what you're looking for, Councilmember Payton?
No, I thought so. I know that we had discussed this in the past, and I thought that that's what we'd come up with. But I just want to make sure, like, that I was informed on how you guys are tracking that. Because yeah, you guys shouldn't have to like, hey, you guys, we need to pay our bills. Can we have permission to move some of the monies around? We know it costs a lot to exist in today's world, and you wouldn't have a job if we didn't trust you, ladies, and we do. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you. And this policy allows for that. So this was just making sure that there's really clear guidelines on when those transfers are made. And so if our cash flow does dip down below our costs, and we need cash for the operating fund, we can take it back out of AMLIP and putting it into checking. So there's a flow between the two, and they're really the same pot of money. They're just in two different accounts. And then from there, in that operating cash, that's where we really need a decision point from council, because it should have a target level. And right now, so we used a template from East Aleutians Borough, and they used a method of having 1 year's operating cost, which is a lot more than what we're operating on, but 1 year's operating cost in their operating cash pot. And for that's 1.7 million. So looking at, you could do it any way you want to, but initially it does say in that cash flow management plan draft, 1.7 for the target. Another way you could do it is a 1.2, thinking that that 500,000 is part of that 1.2. And I don't have any aspirations that the city is going to get to that target anytime soon. I think this is, maybe decades down the road, if ever, but just making sure that there is a path forward if it ever did, and a targeted level for that account in the first place. And if it does ever reach that target level, that's when those would roll into an AMLIP operating reserve, which would be at council. I mean, it's all at council's discretion, but this would sit there at council's discretion until they decided you guys decided if you wanted it to go into some of those major maintenance and repair sub accounts or other projects, or the Seldovia permanent fund. And that's when that would trigger those monies going into the Seldovia permanent fund itself. Because remember, those are funds that we do not want to have to liquidate anytime soon. We have about 6 years left on those, in hopes that we can have a bigger discussion at the 10-year mark on maybe having a dividend from it, but not near there anytime soon. And then the other path from the AMLIP operating cash, which is that targeted level of 1.2 or 1.7 or whatever really makes sense to the council, is then we would have some annual deposits that I will jump to in another slide here in a minute, to a couple of the accounts, as well as if there's a project or something that's coming up and that you guys want to see funded, those funds could obviously be directed from council directly into those other accounts. Does that make sense so far? This is really the meat of the plan, how the money flows up. Well, I'm showing it up, but really it can go back down too, if we're ever in a hardship or in a hard place. Any questions?
Heidi, I've read the finance report. My question is on the permanent fund. And I look at the numbers and we're holding 600 and something. Are we doing the best we can on that as far as investment? Because I look at different things that like the maintenance building, and it looks like you could take, if we have a minimum of 500,000, you could take that excess money and divert it over to the maintenance fund to build a facility, a maintenance facility. Is that correct?
So, I mean, you guys could make that decision to liquidate the above the principal. It's the below the principal is tied in to land, purchasing land itself. But above the principal, if you guys wanted to make that determination, you could. As I said, the previous council set limits for this fund to sit in Charles Schwab for 10 years, hoping to reach, I think the intent was to reach $1 million or above, and then be able to draw like a 2% or a whatever percent dividend, while the principal and the interest continued to accumulate. Not the principal accumulate, but the principal is compounding interest. So that could be a discussion the council could have if they wanted. There are other pots of money, and that is in the AMLIP Major Maintenance and Repair Fund. And we're going to get to those. Actually, if you want to go back a slide real quick, Liz, I could show you that. It's really small, so I need to make it bigger so I can see. At the bottom here, we have about $702,000. Well, that's what we projected for the FY26 budget. We're actually above that as of the end of FY25. Those estimated numbers are in the third column from the right, and that's $781,804.64 that are in several AMLIP accounts already for specific projects or specific funds. The top one is the Major Maintenance and Repair Fund, and that has $290,749. There is a Harbor Capital Project Fund that has $217,667, and part of that is Jackloff, which has already been committed. That $140,000 is committed to Jackloff. And so, you could make changes, but that would affect the funding levels for that dock and the actual funding for it. The fuel retail facility account is brand new, and that's a portion of the rents that are coming from that building and for future repairs and maintenance. So that only has $2,380. You guys did do a small liability budget amendment previously, which put some funds in on the right that are not in for FY25 yet, but FY25 public police and public safety fund has 51,000. You guys have also spent some of those funds in FY26 on the generator project, so it's a little less now in FY26 at 41,000. There's a public Parks and Rec and Trails fund, and that has the Lake Susan funds in it for FY25 of $1,621, and then a Public Works fund, which is the 2% sales tax. At the end of FY25, it had $131,835, and we just did a 44,000 and some change. It's in the city manager's report, so it's got just under or just at $170,000 in that Public Works 2% fund. And then the vehicle replacement is smaller at $689,600. So you do have funds besides the besides the permanent fund that are available, and we can get into some capital projects discussions about those at the council's discretion if you'd like. Right now, trying to focus on just the flow of cash with the targeted values. So I don't know if council has any suggestions for that second operating cash pot, the AMLIP. If you have a targeted level that sounds great, do you want to go for the full year? of the 1.7, or a year with the combined with the checking of with 1.2 in the operating cash for AMLIP and 500 in checking. Thoughts? Feedback?
Still trying to get my head wrapped around that, what that means in the practical sense.
Understood. And it's interesting, especially talking with Jan and going back and forth. For full disclosure, before putting out this presentation and being able to work through this process, I had two really great discussions with our investment manager for the permanent fund. And they also oversee the AMLIP portion of things. So definitely was guided with some expert financial feedback, because it's a lot. So I get that. And if you guys ever want, we can also invite them to a meeting if that's helpful. And we don't have to have a decision tonight. So I can go through the rest of this presentation if you want. And then if you guys have any thoughts or feedback, we can go from there. Does that work for you, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm sure more discussion will come up when we get in the regular meeting then too.
Okay. So another way for funds to go into the MMRF would be, so if you see in that cash flow management policy under the MMRF and Public Works and vehicle replacement, there is a method, a vehicle for there to be annual deposits of a targeted level or a targeted contribution to go into those funds. 2% Public Works transfer is the only one that does not, thank you, Liz, sorry, I didn't say that, is the only one that does not need council permission prior. It's just something that we automatically trigger, and then we let you guys know. And if you guys want to change anything, move funds back, forth, whatever you want to do afterwards, of course you can. But right now what it's doing is it's taking those earmarked funds that were passed by the voter and put into code for Public Works, that 2%, and it's less the greater payment, so that comes out first, and then anything above that greater payment is automatically going into account. The other two vehicles we're looking at for moving funds at an annual level is to move funds from the MMRF, or sorry, to the MMRF from the special revenue funds. The special revenue fund, and this is where it gets confusing because we have operating cash, but then we also have our fund balances. And the fund balances and several, for example, of the special revenue funds actually exceeds a 1-year operating reserve. And so looking at those for water, then you would say, okay, we're going to transfer that 24,000 in the next budget to, and this is just an example because I would like to, instead of just using an operating budget and a ending fund budget for 1 year, do a 3-year average for each, or we could do a 5-year average, whatever council thinks, and then be able to take those excess funds and say those are going to go right into your MMRF for water in the case that you have a major water leak or need, a big water repair or a water purchase like new pumps at the water treatment plant. Those funds are then in the major maintenance and repair fund in order to take care of those types of projects. Same with sewer, which has a little bit of an overhead right now, harbor, BHO, and then being able to have those discussions, like Councilmember Barber's talking about, if there is a desire to use those funds to make improvements, to make repairs. It throws that out of the operating budget really and into the capital project budget or the major maintenance and repair budget, and as a separate discussion. Are we tracking on that?
Yeah.
So that's one vehicle to move funds. And it also helps us because we're moving, again, that's another way we're moving funds directly from the checking or the operating and AMLIP and into a different account, into the MMRF sub account well, it doesn't have sub-accounts, but the MMRF, and then in the budget, it's tracking water, sewer, BHO, and harbor. And then if we go to the next slide, another option included in that cash flow management plan, if you're following through. So the first meet was the overall operating cash, and then now we're in other funds. So there was a section on the MMRF, and now there's a section on vehicle replacement fund, which technically is could be a subsection to the Public Works Fund. And so looking at that 2% Public Works Fund and how we keep a healthy stock, a healthy inventory of vehicles moving forward. This is something that is common in other communities. Maybe we're not ready to do this now, but while we're having this discussion and looking at annual contributions, I wanted to throw this out there for consideration, and it is included in the plan, is that you can look at having the city manager state every annual budget. Okay, this is where we're at with our fleet. These are our main fleet items, and backtracking or forward planning that lifespan of 40 years where we are right now with that item, and how much of an annual payment that would be to that 40-year or 25-year mark, depending on the vehicle, and then ensuring that those contribution levels are put into that vehicle replacement fund. And while the majority of that would go from the 2% Public Works Fund in this plan, unless there's somewhere else you guys want it to come from, some of it would, for instance, come from water. For the backhoe would make a payment towards, water and sewer would make a payment towards the backhoe because they use it quite frequently. Boat haul out would make a payment towards the loader because it uses it very regularly. And so that's not shown here because that's a little bit more complex. And I wanted to get council's feedback before we started those breakdowns and allocations per special revenue fund into as a portion of what would be that annual deposit to the vehicle replacement fund. Is this something that you guys would like to consider and have a discussion about as we move forward in the budget? Is starting to forward plan, forward fund those vehicles moving forward out of that 2%? Or is that, and maybe we can't, maybe you need to think about it, and we need to have a broader discussion on the 2% itself, in that you still have 3 years of payments for the grader. And I know that there's some interest from council members to see some other projects done. But certainly would love to hear from council their thoughts on having this kind of a pathway in order to start to take away some of these deferred maintenance needs that we keep running into. It'd be great to do this for our facilities as well, like we've kind of started with the fuel retail fund. But those are some pretty significant dollars that need to be come up with to be able to take care of our facilities. So not quite there yet in the discussion, unless that's where you guys want us to focus. But starting with vehicles. Thoughts on this?
I have a question, Heidi.
Mhm.
On the example, are these real numbers or are they just a number for example? Because in today's world, you're not going to buy an Expedition for 25,000. Any of those price, even that motor grader for 300, if you went to NC Cat today and had to buy it, you're not going to buy it for that price. So what I'm wondering, when you have and your replacement cost, that doesn't look real to me. I don't know where or how everybody else is going to look at it, but to me it doesn't look right.
Through the mayor, excellent question. So these are real numbers. The backhoe replacement that we're looking at right now for a brand new backhoe through NC Machinery through our government contract price is $199,000. So we are already looking at that. The motor grader, I think, was 251,000. I'd have to double check on that number. Less than
right there.
300,000. So we did, I did up that because I know in the future it's going to cost more. Loader again is still a little bit low, but these things will also compound interest as they go. For expedition, I had this conversation with our finance officer, and we were both in agreement, though council may not be, that if we are purchasing vehicles for city crew, that they shouldn't necessarily be brand new. A lot of these things we've gotten from different projects or secondhand. There's no reason for us to buy a brand new vehicle for the city staff and crew to be running around in. Public Works, they do need a flatbed as a part of their fleet because they have the sander and they have other equipment that utilize that truck. So looking at a brand new one, hopefully even in that case, we could buy used, but trying to make sure that we do have a little bit of a cushion if we need to buy newer, and also for the utility truck. The refuse truck, if you remember, we bought that a couple years back. That was used and it was 21,000. So looking at a $50,000 cushion, but not trying to break the bank by buying brand new vehicles across the city, but also by trying to be forward thinking and having a little bit of this nest egg available for when those things do need to be replaced.
So Heidi, so maybe I'm misunderstanding then. So this replacement, is this for purchasing a used vehicle?
For the, not for the heavy equipment, but for the rest of the vehicles, yes, for used
Used.
is the
Okay.
hope. Yeah.
Thank you.
And you can see that, those decisions aren't going to come for many years. I think the closest one on the list is the flatbed in 32. So still have a little bit of time. They're still in pretty good condition. So this just allows you guys to start that process so that when you do need to replace it, and at 25 years, I mean, maybe they can make it longer. That seems to kind of be the going rate, and it's pretty generous. But we're not going long miles super hard with our vehicles. So trying to make sure to get the most of them. That's the time frame we're looking at.
Yeah, I think the vehicles, we could probably, it's somewhere between, 20 years and 20 and 25 or whatever, but obviously the equipment's going to get used a little bit harder, depending on the amount of hours and, what we're putting on that. So, and we know what happens when you start getting to the end of the lifespan, you start getting nickel and dime pretty heavily. So, I think in general, I like the idea of, having some more discussion on this as we get into budgeting. And we've talked about how deferred maintenance is basically the evil of all municipalities in the country. There's very few that fully fund or even come anywhere near funding any kind of deferred maintenance for both facilities, vehicles, all of that. And it's a budget killer when you have, as we well know, when something either starts leaking, blows off, breaks down, whatever, you don't have any dollars. There's no dollars to replace it. So, yeah, you're dead in the water. It's just like, our water treatment plant, all of our, life safety facilities. Yeah, we have to be, forward thinking on, how we're gonna keep those operating in the years to come.
Okay.
Yeah. Heidi, I appreciate the time and the foresight into putting this together, and I agree with the mayor. It's like it makes sense to me that we need to start putting some money aside specifically for these because, they seem like long range projects, but you don't want to have to pay for them all at one time.
And with this, so while it's in the cash flow management plan, what it is a recommendation from management. And you guys at every year have the opportunity to say yay or nay or less or more. So it just is, it's putting that vehicle in, but nothing is triggered without that approval from council and into the budget. Does it feel like that is at least a practice that maybe we could try it for this year and see how it goes? And if it looks good, continue forward and without expectation that money is actually moved, just knowing that we can have that conversation in case it is time to move those funds.
I think that makes sense because would you do that towards the very end of the budget cycle then, actually when you know where everything's panning out, or before you close out the year, obviously, is when you would make those budget adjustments. It would be an end of year budget adjustment rather than say a mid-year. And then, yeah, if you see that we're coming up light, or or if we're heavy, then the annual recommended contribution would be this. Bring the resolution. Are we good? Or do we, make some changes? And then it's a simple vote with your recommendations and or any council changes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's about as straightforward as you could probably be.
Okay. Well, if everybody is okay with that, we will keep working towards it. But not, this isn't a final outcome. We're just working towards it. And we'll go to the next slide because I know we're getting close on time and we're almost done here. The one thing I did want to touch on is this Police Public Works Fund. It does state that the purpose of the fund in the policy is, in the policy, it says there is established per the FY25 budget, a Police and Public Safety Reserve Fund for the purpose of reestablishing the Seldovia Police Department. And recently, those funds, we had some funds go into it from the small liability accounts that were recognized earlier by council in a budget adjustment, as well as some funds came out of it for the generator project. And there was discussion on potentially being able to use these funds for a broader purpose. So I wanted to bring this forward to the council just to get your guys' take on what the intent and purpose of this fund is, how you would like to see it moving forward. There are no recommended annual contributions to it at this point. I think it's sitting there and its purpose in case there needs to be the reestablishment of a Seldovia Police Department. But are there other things that you guys would like to see with it?
Are we still not doing the last couple of years of what have we put into that? Wasn't it still around $40,000 or $50,000 that we were putting into it?
So you haven't put anything new. It's just 50,000 that was sitting
It
there.
was the original amount.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you could put new funds into it if you want. Or, you can use, I need direction from council, I guess, is what I'm asking for how you want to see this fund operate and what all you want entailed for the purpose of this fund.
Yeah, just to remind the new council members, so the intent of this, when we transitioned from the city police chief model over to the VPSO model, we weren't exactly sure how that was going to work. What we didn't want to do is just immediately start spending all of that money and then find out a year later that, now we got to come back. We have to hire immediately a new police chief at the tune of, 100 and some grand a year, maintain vehicles, police department, and not have any budget for it. So we wanted to put some level of funding in there so that we wouldn't have to come up with the whole thing on a moment's notice. So that's kind of where it leads us up to now. So Heidi, then are you asking, if we want to do something with the 50 that's in there, or just reestablish what the intent of that policy is?
Yeah, I guess I'm just asking
Or fund
if
is, excuse me.
Yeah, I'm just asking if there are because it has been used in another purpose recently by council, I'm just doing I guess a vibe check to see if it's this generalized purpose for reestablishing the Seldovia Police Department, if needed, is still the right purpose, or if it needs to be expanded more onto like a public safety reserve for capital projects or equipment, or just what is the vision there for this fund?
Harmony, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I had mentioned previously to someone on the department, and I can't remember where we had landed on that. The dispatch, we keep having these relay issues. We've tried updating our equipment and we didn't qualify for some of the funding, yada, yada. Is it still an option to consider, as you're saying there, maybe earmarking it for like public safety funding, for little projects like that so that we can have updated equipment?
Through the mayor, excellent question. I think that's up to you guys. If you guys want to expand it, it's beyond just the establishment of a department and be able to use it for equipment, or capital projects or improvement. That's all within your purview.
I don't think that's a bad idea. I mean, that would be, yeah, obviously our dispatch radios are super important to our whole dispatch system. That's not a bad idea. And then, of course, if we took a draw on that, it would, at least during the budget cycle, could come up for discussion again if we wanted to, let it lie for that year, or if we wanted to ante up and try to, get back to our fund balance, our initial 50 on the fund, but that is sitting right around 50 and some change or something right now, Heidi. I didn't look at it when we were looking earlier.
It's a little bit less because of the draw
The usage.
from, yeah.
Okay.
So, but we'll have that discussion as part of the capital project discussion.
Yeah.
We can include this fund as well. So we can update that purpose to include equipment and capital projects and improvements, if that works. It looks like
Yeah,
Councilmember
Jackie, you got your
Taylor.
hand up? Go ahead, Jackie, if you can hear me, you're on mute.
Can someone refresh my memory on how much the new radios were going to cost for EMS?
Yeah, so we recently submitted a grant that we didn't receive, and I believe it was around the $100,000 mark. And that was for the whole big package. That's coming open again, and we'll resubmit for it. But it could just even be that there's a couple radios purchased at a time. I don't know. That's a discussion to have with the department on how they see moving forward in this process. But it was quite an expensive ticket to be able to upgrade all of that equipment.
Yeah.
And we would still need the repeater to go along with is the repeater issue is separate, or is it connected to those new radios?
Separate, but kind of together. So they did purchase a new repeater. The department put 16,000 towards it. It came in and it didn't work.
Correct. Yeah.
So now that's back out, and the loaner came in, and the loaner actually stopped working today. So we're back on the cell phone process, and they're trying to troubleshoot and figure out, I don't know, I've heard mentioned in the past that maybe it's a bigger issue with the antenna equipment. I'm not sure. I don't even want to begin to really guess what that looks like, but I'm hoping to get the techs here and do just a bigger overview and try to troubleshoot what that issue is ultimately, because there's something that continues to not work with the new repeater.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, Heidi, if I may.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Wasn't it more just like a technicality on the wording why we didn't get that grant? And
Yes.
and just also, yeah, so we can resubmit it and potentially get that. So that's a lot of funding that would be great to receive for that. I do agree that the funds, we could, I think using it for public safety is great, but I also am concerned that, I do want to maintain that we put the money back into this, because if we do have to switch back to a police, I want the funding there to be able to do that. I don't want us to be left like, a cowboy town again.
Okay.
Harmony, do you have a quick comment?
I'd echo what you just said there. Yeah, no, as far to just like refer back to the radio comment, I in no way represent that conversation. I'm a dispatcher. And when Jen was trying to talk to me about that, I just like, not gonna lie, you guys, I have too much. There's no more room in the noodle for more chaos. So I was like, sure, you need funding. I don't have that. But if that's something that we wanted to talk about a little bit further, get a more realistic understanding what the department needs, maybe we could just ask Jen and or Jan to put together a super brief summary on if there even is anything we can do to help the department as part of like an advisory council letter of help. But I don't even know if it's something that they want at this point, but it sure would be nice to not have frickin' Jen, who owns a business, has 3 kids, is on every board in town, like having to answer her cell phone so that she can relay a dispatch to somebody at 3 a.m. That girl does a lot, you guys. That was my point there.
She does.
Agreed.
Okay,
Yeah,
so-
good points. You guys, good points. Thanks for bringing those up.
So really we just have 2 quick more slides. We can work on language for that. And thank you guys. And this one I'm not really going to go into, but I did have a question from a council member on what the status of our state and federal grants are. So just to give you just a brief overview, we have about 17, we don't have about, we have 17 active grants at this moment. Totaling $11,573,340 that have been awarded, with 341,435 local match committed. And we can get into that discussion more when we get into the capital project discussion. But just that's a real quick overview. Not gonna go any further into that. And then the last slide is just really if there's any further information you guys want to see on this cash flow policy. Is it checking right now with what you guys were envisioning? As I know this was a council priority for FY26. I think that we can use this draft as we move forward through the budget process and continue to just check on it before it's passed, to see if this works. But thoughts, other questions, more information that council would like to see directly regarding the cash flow policy?
Chime in if anyone's got anything. If not, and something comes to your mind, go ahead, Jackie.
I'm good, Heidi. Well done.
Okay. Well, if this meets everybody's needs so far, I'm hearing, I didn't hear a target level for AMLIP, so I guess we'll keep it at that 1.7 unless anybody else has anything to add. Sounds like the restructuring is okay. The unassigned is okay. Vehicle replacement we'll continue to talk about, and I'll update that language for the police and public safety reserve.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, and obviously we'll get into a number of these a little more deeper as we start our meetings on budget. So yeah, that sounds good. Anything else from anyone before we wrap it up here tonight?
We don't have to make a decision on this tonight, is that correct? Personally, I'd
mayor-
like more time to think about it.
Yes, if that's questions for me through the mayor, no, this is a work session, so no action. This is just to start that conversation. And as the mayor said, we'll go through, I'll probably present on the general fund next and some of the special revenue funds. And then towards the end, we'll come back to that capital project budget and have an in-depth conversation about that, which will tie into this. And before any action can be taken, it needs to be presented as a resolution to adopt it. So still more time to think through it, discuss it. Come see me if you have any questions. We can have another work session if we need to, but no action at this tonight, just trying to get your guys's feedback and input so that it can be amended how it needs to be, and we can continue to move forward with it.
Thank you.
Sounds good, Heidi. Let's see, can we stay on this link or we got to sign out and sign back in for the regular meeting?
We can stay on this link. I'm just going to stop the online streaming and I'll restart that for the regular meeting.
Okay, sounds good. If let's see, let's see while we're here, do we have any comments from the public on either of these topics tonight?
I'm not seeing any, Mr. Mayor.
All right, with that being said, we are going to go ahead and adjourn the work session, and it's 6:04. Let's come back in about 6 minutes here, give everyone a chance for bathroom break, and then we'll get started at 6:10 for the regular meeting here. All right, and we stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor.